This
David?
conference will now be recorded.
Hello, David.
How you doing?
All right, how you? Finally ready?
See the tree branches and everything today.
I hear kids in the background.
They're all saying hello to you, Tom, sending their love. Those are mine.
Roy, are you still at the office?
No, sir, I am not. I bailed about 4 o'clock today.
I would hate to see you have to drive back. I got caught 2 hours on 1431 sitting watching a wreck.
Yeah.
Does
No,
everybody get the copier moved?
no, and you're not gonna believe this. I took a phone call right before I left, and that's when the guy called. And he was out in the parking lot. By the time I got off the phone, he was gone. He assumed I wasn't there.
Dang.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Can hear you, Gary.
Good evening, all. Welcome to our regular meeting of the Planning, Zoning, and Iceberg Commission for February 11, 2012. Not exactly sure what my problem is. I have a frog in my throat, but I think it's more the lily pad that's bothering me more than the frog. But anyway, as we move on here, of course, I would like to make the introductions, and we'll see who we do have with us this evening. Our Vice Chair, Tom Monahan. Hi, Tom. And Julie Davis. Thank you for attending, Julie.
Of course.
And Charles, I see you're there, and I see Larry Hagler, and I understand that Mr. Brown may be convalescing. I don't see where he has joined us. And of course, Mr. Don Jandro. Hi, Don.
Yes. Hi, how you doing?
Just fine.
Good.
And of course, I'm Gary Zaleski, the chair of the P&Z, and we have with us, I see Roy, you are there, and Aaron, thanks for joining us on this rather chilly night. And as always, David Williams, our liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission from the City Council. I guess what I would like to do before we begin, I'd like to make a courtesy notation, and Roy or Aaron might even be able to help more with this. But for some people might have thought that this evening we were going to be discussing Sunset Harbor, which we will not. And Aaron, would you mind just making a quick notation as to why we decided not to include it on the agenda? I think you're muted.
Oops.
There you
If I
go.
There you
remember
go.
correctly, and Roy, correct me if I've misstate this, but we had an issue with the notice for that, and if without the proper notice, we couldn't run because there was an issue with the actual meets and bounds description of the property, and so without that, we don't have a proper legal description, and without the proper legal description, we can't. The board can't consider, commission can't consider the matter. So we'll hopefully we'll have it ready for you next time around.
We sent the ad in today, but they seem to have been closed too. Hopefully they'll treat it as timely.
Yes, and I think there might have been someone who was going to join us that was going to make comments, and since it's really is not an agenda item, we just wanted to make sure everybody kind of understood some of the reasoning why it was not listed there. And at this point, for citizen comments on any non-agenda items, that in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, the commission is prohibited from acting or discussing, other than factual responses to specific questions, any item not on the agenda. So are there any citizen comments before we proceed? Doesn't appear to be. All right. And with that, we will move on to item number one. Item number one this evening, 20-1726-REZ, R-REZ 201739. Consideration of a recommendation regarding a zoning district change request from R1D, single family resident, and TR1, temporary restricted, to P2, Park and Greenbelt District, passive, and C2, commercial large scale, with design approval for the property located at 20700 Northland Drive, Lago Vista Estate, Section 6, Lot 1874, and the portion of the property platted as Tract A, separating this lot from both 7600 and 7608 Loman Ford Road. And Roy, I know this is we're continuing this. Would you mind bringing us up to date with the staff presentation?
Yes, sir. I did receive some new material, and I separated that for your convenience. So, you know, its own little section in the packet. You may recall that one of my complaints was they didn't really have a protected tree survey, and therefore I wondered how valid their landscaping plan might have been. And sure enough, they did give us a protected tree survey, and their landscaping plan, as well as their entire site plan, was modified significantly as a result. And that was the sort of thing that we wanted and expected, and are very happy that they now have something that's realistic as opposed to fictitious in front of you. That was probably the best response I got to my small list of complaints. The other one had to do with the materials, if you will, that the surrounding residential neighborhoods might have been subjected to. They had a very vague reference on their drawings that suggested that was really what you guys might be calling painted concrete block, as opposed to the plaster that was on the front. Their response to that was to give us a rendering that, without any notes or without any materials called out, that showed those to be similar materials. However, they submitted the same drawings that indeed indicated that, you know, one was plaster and the other was something else, probably painted block. Nonetheless, you know, I think I made a comment about that in an email to the property owner, and he made every indication that we just need to tell them what they need to do. And the staff is of the opinion that you can stipulate that change. Similarly, they did in fact show us a change in their detention water quality pond in the back. It got a little bit bigger, shifted a little bit, changed shape, which would seem to have indicated that they put some thought into it this time. However, I didn't get the kind of detail that I needed to address two things. One, the material of the retaining wall that would otherwise be exposed, and the other about the depth to know whether it had to have security railings all the way around. What I did was I beat on the city engineer until he did some preliminary calculations to describe what that thing looks like. And we now know, in fact, that it will have a significant amount of exposed retaining wall that will have to be what we call a premium finish. For those of you that worked on us when we worked on the material ordinances, you may remember that in the old days they defined everything, the good materials, as masonry, but they were also accepting plaster as being masonry, which it's not, but for some reason they thought it was. And anyway, and in our newer ordinance, we made that distinction and said, no, we allow both as a premium material, masonry and plaster. In this case, that particular ordinance predates that change. So just so that you'll know, if they submit a wall that has a plaster finish, the staff would accept it. And they will have to have security railings all the way around the pond, all four sides. It will be deep enough and have enough water in it for a matter of hours where it's a safety hazard. It won't stay wet very long, but there'll be periods when it will.
So, Roy, is it of your opinion that if the commission were to approve, we should take into consideration some of these recommendations that you're making that this applicant should follow
Yes, sir.
if it were to be approved?
They are itemized in your recommended alternatives. I think there's 3 stipulations in there, as I recall.
Yes. Yes, and you've already stated those, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Tom, did you have something for Roy?
Just, Roy, for, in those potential recommendations, you have the same 3 pre-qualifications as we did last month. So was there no movement on those things or just inadequate movement on those things?
They gave us some movement, but it was inadequate.
Okay.
For example, they gave us additional drawings, okay, but they didn't really clear up what materials they proposed for the back or the sides of the building.
Okay.
Like I said, I made that comment to the property owner. He responded by saying, look, just tell me what you want, we'll do it. So that's what I need you guys to do, stipulate it.
Okay.
Same thing about the pond. What I know about the pond, I know from Eric, not from them.
Okay.
But he could tell it was designed. They just didn't give me the depth, the size, all that stuff, the materials, none of that's there. So we need you to specify that they will comply with the ordinance, that you're not, by your recommendation, recommending any kind of waiver from those requirements.
Okay.
Any commissioners have any questions of Roy at this point?
I have a
If
just
not,
general question, Gary.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Julie.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Julie.
I was just wondering, being new, if it's within this committee's responsibility to consider what type of business is asking for the variance, and if that type of business is needed here or fits kind of the long-range plan that we hope to develop within our community. I mean, does that fall to our responsibility? Where does that get checked off on between Economic Development Committee or Planning and Zoning.
You want to take that, Aaron, or you want me to?
Why don't you touch on it, and if you leave something out, I'll follow up.
Yeah, what's in front of you guys, and in fact, not even much of that. The property on the front where the convenience store is predominantly located is already in the C2 zoning district.
Right.
The way your zoning district works, any permitted use in that C2 zoning district can be there. You don't make any distinction between C2 businesses. For example, you have another C2 business on the very next agenda item. You're not allowed to say, well, we like this one, we don't like this one, because we have too many. That is, in fact, the province of Mr. Roberts' committee, and incentivizing other types of businesses and those things. Now, that is not to say that you can't control things. One of the things you have in your ordinance that the rest of the commission has heard me describe before is what we call special use permit approvals, where you can say, here's, for example, you might have a zoning district where you can have professional offices and then only a handful of C2 uses in that district. And you're saying those require what we call special use permit approvals, where it might be site plan, severe, conditions required to develop there. Those are the kind of things that you are permitted to do. We talked about doing that, for example, for mixed uses to encourage those. So the answer is there are a few tools in your zoning toolbox, but most of them belong to economic development.
Okay, thank you.
Julie, I had the same question, about how do you determine whether you need another gas station or not? So that explains it.
Well, and Dawn and I come from the Economic Development Committee, and
Mhm.
there was never any discussion about this kind of thing. We never talked about what businesses were coming, and so I didn't know where there was a direction from that commission.
I'll put it to you this way. It is, even to us who've been doing this a long time in much larger cities, it's a surprising number of convenience stores that you have in Laguna.
Thank you.
Anything to add, Aaron?
I think that covers it. You can't tell them, you can't specify what, that you don't want another gas station or another specific type of property, but it has to be done with the carrot method rather than the stick method. Incentivizing it through the EDC.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps now as we move to the applicant presentation, you might want to clarify some.
I don't see, Mr. Billings was representing them, but I don't see him hiding anywhere.
Yeah, I don't either.
All right. Then if there is no applicant presentation, then what we will do is we will continue the public hearing at 7:17. And if those individuals, I see there probably a lot of call-ins. I don't see, I guess I'd just ask for whoever, and if you would like to add something that has not already been covered in some of the previous meetings, or just to reinforce, go ahead and acknowledge with your name and your address, and go ahead and speak at this time.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
I can.
Yes.
Yes, this is Sherry Jander, 20802 Northland Drive. And I have a question and then a quick statement. Roy, you said that there was a traffic study, but we never saw anything about that traffic study. And the last meeting, you said you didn't have it. Can you tell us what happened to the traffic study?
Yes, ma'am. The city engineer has it. He's the one that reviews it, not me.
Is there some way we can see that? And
I can certainly, you can request it and I'll get a copy. I mean, it's public information. It's not a secret. But
okay.
from my perspective, what the city engineer is during a review process that I'm involved with, it shows the improvements, and I expect the city engineer to tell me that it's either consistent with the traffic study or it's not. And he's indicated that it is. And there are improvements that are dictated by that study that are on that site plan.
Okay. Then I just wanted to quickly say that, are you all aware that in November of 1981, there was a declaration of covenants and restrictions set forth by NRC of Lake Travis World of Resorts that declared the Lago Vista Estates Section 6 lots to be zoned R1, single family residential. And this document is recorded in the Travis County Records, volume 7616, page 317. The lot number 1874 is included in this declaration. And under article number 5 and the general provisions, you will see that this declaration shall run with and bind the land. And this document can be viewed on the POA website. This should be R1 and stay R1, no matter what.
It sounds like those are the Property Owners Association. Erin, would you want to comment on that, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those, if you have validly executed deed restrictions, those deed restrictions are binding between the property owners. The city does not have authority to enforce specific deed restrictions. The city has specific authority under the state laws in the Texas Local Government Code with regard to zoning of property. So the exercise of that legal authority is what's happening here through the Planning and Zoning Commission. If you want to take up a particular legal issue that you believe there may be a violation of the deed restrictions, that is a private matter that you would have to address directly with the property owner. It's not something that the city would be a party to.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sherry. And thank you, Erin. Was there any others that wanted to speak during the public hearing?
Yes, I would like to say this is Cynthia Durham at 20803 Northland Drive. And our main concern is encroaching on the residential. We understand that there's already been zoned C2 on the frontage of Lomans. The biggest problem with us is that now they're asking for a large residential portion of that behind that area to be rezoned to commercial. Now we know that it's already C2 and whatever they want to put there, that's fine. But trying to take that big area behind it that's residential and changing and widen Northland is the main problem. Changing the residential code. We know the others already coded C2. So we just want to keep that.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Chairman,
Yes,
Just as a clarification, the rezoning of that, the vast majority of that residential lot is not to commercial, it's to P2, which would prohibit anything from being built back there at all. The location of the detention pond, nobody can put a building or a store there.
thank you, Roy. All right, is there any other, Mr. Roberts, you wanted to comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. I would just submit to the commission that I think this is now the third meeting that this has been in front of you for consideration. And at the end of the day, in order for these people to, it sounds like, to go forward with their project, the rezoning of the other property they control from R1D, I think it was, to the park, as Roy was just speaking to, is necessary to make their project happen. You guys don't have the ability, let me rephrase this. The citizens don't want it. Nobody wants this. And if you don't approve the rezoning of the adjacent property, this likely is going to have to be greatly modified or it won't happen. And that would be consistent with the will of the people. And we don't need another gas station at Loman's Ford, in my opinion. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron, did you want to make a comment there?
Mr. Chairman, only to state that as our board members, the commission members understand that your authority is limited to applying the regulations with regard to the zoning requirements. And if this applicant's application meets those requirements, then you have an obligation to grant it. Obviously, there are some conditions that you can apply or require as part of that. So I would encourage you to kind of focus on what do our zoning regulations and requirements, the rezoning requirements require. And if it meets those, then apply any additional requirements that you deem necessary to ensure compliance with all of our regulations.
Thank you, Counselor. Yes, Mr. Roberts.
This is a question. I must procedurally, I need to direct it to you, but it's indirectly for Aaron. It's certainly not rhetorical in nature, but on Chapter 14, Sections 13.20 D and E of the city ordinances, does any of that apply in this matter? Do findings of fact have to be made in order to deviate from the future land use map for that residential, that currently zoned residential property?
I guess I'll ask Aaron to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Aaron.
If you want to continue to take questions, I'll be happy to answer. This may take me just a second to ensure that I give you a fully complete and accurate response, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While she's researching that, pulling that up, I just don't, I know that if you're going to deviate from the future land use map, you have to have certain findings. There's 3 findings of fact that you have to have. I just don't recall what the trigger is off the top of my head for those findings of fact. And I think that's probably primarily what Aaron's going to be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Counselor, would you like to reply at this time?
Mr. Chair, I'm pulling up that particular regulation. My internet's usually faster than this. I don't want to.
It's the ice. It's ice down. Ice reduces the swelling of the internet. So I'm just referring to some of my past medical experience. I'll tell you what, if there weren't any other questions or comments during this public hearing, I'm going to just kind of reserve that you can come back to that during our discussion period. And
Yes, I'm
I'm
sorry.
going to close the public hearing
Excuse
at,
me,
Well,
I have one question.
I'm sorry, who is
I do
that,
have a
please?
question, actually. The address is 20702 Northland Drive.
And your name, please?
Jennifer.
Jennifer, a last name?
Todd.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just wondering how many chances are you going to give this applicant and his attorney to present the information that you've requested multiple times? You know, this was originally continued in December without a public hearing for them to present their design proposals. And then in January, as far as I know, they just didn't show up. And now we're in February and they're not here again. So I'm just wondering, while Roy talked about their design proposals, maybe you guys have seen it, but I don't think any of that's been seen by the public. And also, Roy mentioned that they failed to present their 3 pre-qualifications. So how many chances do you give them? How many times does this have to be continued before you reject their proposal?
I guess my reply, we would give anybody multiple opportunities to present and
Okay.
give the public multiple opportunities to express their opinions.
Okay,
So,
so even if they're represented by an attorney, you'll let this drag on for 6 months while they don't provide the information that you've requested and that the residents have requested?
I guess I don't quite understand your question.
and
Oh, so I'm just asking, I guess, rhetorically, are you going to let this
for
drag on?
clarification,
I'm sorry? Are you going to let this drag on 6 months, 3 months? How long before you say we're rejecting your proposal because you're not providing the information that we've requested from you? And you have residents who have requested information in the last couple of meetings, and they haven't showed up the last 2 meetings, nor has their attorney.
well, and
So
for clarification, Mr. Chairman, you may recall
Roy, we might have lost you. Go ahead.
well, Mr. Chairman, this is Roy.
Yes, go ahead. Roy, can you hear us? Well, unfortunately,
If you're ready to reply, Mr. No, I'm here. I'm just waiting for pause. You may recall, Mr. Chairman, that they did in fact an email last time. They did not just simply not show up.
yes,
Needed more time
yes,
to provide the drawings. So they couldn't get what I asked for in a month. I'm not sure they gave me exactly what I asked for this time, but it was close enough. Yes, sir, I can hear you. You can't hear me?
No, sir.
no.
You cut in and out, Roy.
Oops. I'm here and I can hear you.
I know, but we're only getting about every third word, Roy. Well, let me see if I can fill in, address that question that.
Can you hear me now, sir?
We can. Go ahead, Roy. Well, for the sake of time and not trying to move on here, the question was, how long are we going to take? Are we going to take 6 months? Are we going to take a year? I think it's important that whatever amount of time it takes to be able to get the clarification needed, and as Roy was saying, we did receive an email.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm the organizer. I'm not even sure I had the option to come and go. Right. I assume it's internet issues, one way or another.
I'm sure that's what it is.
Just
So,
from the audio, and I'm not how without Cam ever.
well, I'll try to continue. The question had to do with how long it's going to take for us to resolve or to approve or to recommend. And as I understand it, we should take as much time as necessary for the benefit of both the applicant, property owner, the developer, and also the residents in this area. And if that takes six meetings, so be it. We don't receive any further compensation, whether it takes 3 meetings or 2 meetings or 1 or 6. So, Tom, did you have a comment there? I see that Mr. Roberts does, but I'll come back to you.
Well, I would agree with that. I also just think, I don't know, my view, this particular case, we potentially make our decision tonight rather than deferring anymore. But, we'll see how our discussion later goes.
Correct. Thank you, Tom. Mr. Roberts, yes, you had something else before I close the public hearing?
Yes, sir. I was just going to expound upon this. I'm looking at Chapter 14, Section 13.20D of our city ordinances, and it reads, parcel change does not conform to master plan. A change of zoning proposed by the owner of the parcel affected may be recommended for enactment, even though such proposed change does not conform to the land use map in the city's master plan, provided that, 1, the commission finds significant and unanticipated changes have occurred in the area of the affected parcel since the classification on the land use map was adopted. Number 2, it is unlikely that the parcel will be developed or used for any use permitted under the zoning classification indicated in the city's master plan. And number 3, the commission finds that the requested zoning classification is the most appropriate classification for the area affected. The preface to those 3 findings of facts is that a change of zoning proposed by the owner of the parcel affected may be recommended for enactment, even though such proposed change does not conform to the future land use map, provided that 1, 2, and 3, not 1 or 2 or 3, but all 3 findings of fact have to be made. Not 1 or 2 or 3, all 3. There's no comma, there's no delineation. It clearly stipulates and implies that you need to find all 3 findings of fact. That's my interpretation of this.
Thank you for your interpretation, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Silvera, if you would, please.
thank you for your patience. I will agree with Mr. Roberts that those are the 3 criteria. What I've been taking time to look at is to verify, based on the current version of our future land use map, what the land uses are that are specified along this area. And when I look at the future land use map, the front piece of property And I don't know if Roy, do you want to give me presenter access so I can pull up my screen? Because I think it's relevant to the discussion, Mr. Chairman, in that the front lot that is already zone C2 is zoned for commercial, and the future land use is listed as regional, retail / office / commercial. The lot that we're looking at for rezoning today is actually listed as estate residential. What the applicant is asking for the use to be rezoned to is essentially a city park or parkland designation. So you can see on my screen, these are the designations. This dark burgundy color, and I'll scroll over to the actual area that we're talking about, but the dark burgundy color will be relevant. And I believe it's either this estate residential or medium density residential. I need to look closer at the colors on the map when we get to that area. So I'm going to scroll over. Bear with me. I hope it's not odd for your view. Okay, let's see if we can zoom in a little bit more. And if you can see on my screen, this is Northland. This is Northland. This is where it hits Lowman. This is the front lot, and this is the back lot. And as you can see, these other lots that are really almost surround it, you know, at least on two sides, have this commercial designation, as well as the two lots that are on the other side of Northland. And then it transitions into this other designation. And so it's this lot, if y'all can see my screen, it may be tiny for you, that is the one in question, correct, Roy? I don't know if we can hear him, but I believe that's the correct. And so if you look at it, it is not wholly inconsistent with the comprehensive master plan, in that this future land use map shows that there will be a corridor along 1431 that is intended for commercial and office use. And that's what our comprehensive plan contemplates. The usage of this particular piece of property would actually be a lesser use of the property, meaning as Roy described earlier, you would not be able to build a building on it under if the commission were to approve the zoning to the park designation. So I want to point that out, that it's not wholly inconsistent with the way the comprehensive plan looks at the corridor for that particular area. And but the use would be a lesser use of the property, not a more intense use of that specific lot. So
you might even argue that it's less than the state residential, Aaron.
Yes, that's exactly the point I'm making. Less than the estate residential, which is what the designation would seem to indicate. Okay, Roy, I'm gonna let you stop sharing my screen. Hopefully you found that somewhat helpful. Mr. Roberts is correct that those are the criteria for granting the rezoning designation. And so when you do look at our code of ordinances, that particular section has those three criteria, significant and you can, a zoning change proposed by the owner of the parcel may be recommended, even though the proposed change does not conform to the land use map in the city master plan. And you have those three criteria to use. They find that significant unanticipated changes have occurred in the area, in the area of the affected parcel since the classification of the land use map was adopted. It's unlikely that the parcel will be developed or used for any permitted under the zoning classification indicated in the city's master plan, and the commission finds that the requested zoning classification is the most appropriate classification for the affected area. Given that the owners of the property now own that parcel, and it is unlikely that they would be able to use that property for residential. That's one of the things that you might take into consideration. Doesn't mean that they can't sell it, but I did want to make sure that you understood that that corridor is considered for commercial use along 1431, along Lomans, and that the neighboring properties that abut it to the north and the full depth of that particular piece of property is also zoned for C2 commercial.
Well, and if you don't mind me chiming in, Mr. Chairman, for what it's worth.
Please do. We have a much better connection now, Roy.
Yeah, I'm on the phone is what's going on. It's apparently the city's website and internet connection. I got a good one, but I can't do both. But anyway, to make a long story short, a normal future land use map, the idea that you would have intense commercial corridor immediately adjacent to a state residential without some sort of buffer is a little extraordinary. That is in fact what the staff intended for the P2 designation to serve as, a buffer between those two.
Thank you, Roy.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question, please?
Who's speaking, please?
Jennifer, 20702 Northland.
Oh, okay. Thank you. It's just hard to identify when there's no picture, and I'm trying to see who's actually trying to talk.
I understand. So you want to rezone this as a park district, park rezoning, but is that standard procedure to build a retention pond with a safety fence that possibly has safety hazards on a park parcel that's right next to residential, where there's kids, there's families, there's dogs?
Mr. Chairman,
Roy,
the P2 is
respond to the question.
The P2 is a zoning district designation. That doesn't mean it's a city park. It is simply a it's a green belt where nothing can be built that doesn't meet a certain criteria. No structures, but that.
I'm sorry, Roy. Except for a retention pond with a safety fence, and that could possibly be a safety hazard to the neighbors who live nearby it or adjacent to it. 20702 abuts that lot. So you're going to allow this applicant to build a retention pond with a safety fence, quote, which is what, a wired fence, or I'm sorry, what
no,
material?
ma'am, it'll be an ornamental fence like any other wrought iron looking fence.
So will it prevent sewage seepage? Will it prevent rodents? Will it prevent leakage or anything into 20702?
The safety rail? No, ma'am. Yep. That's what the pond is designed to do.
Okay.
It's to prevent those things. It's actually safer than a raw piece of land in that regard.
Okay. So based on what Paul Roberts said, then do you think that that's the best use for that property? For that parcel? You think the best use of that parcel is to rezone it so you can build a retention pond? And
well, ma'am, if you don't mind me saying so, are you directing comments to the commission or are you and I having a conversation?
Yes, to the commission. Well, I'm not
well,
sure.
then if you're direct, Ma'am, if you're addressing it to the commission, I'm going to ask you within the next, say, minute and a half, to go ahead and summarize your comments because they're quite rhetorical, and we would really like to have your input. But once again, go ahead and take the next minute of time to make your comments during the public hearing, and then we'll close the public hearing.
Okay, so I was just following up on what Paul Roberts said, how he asked if this was the best use for that affected parcel. To me, it doesn't seem like the best use is building a retention pond, a safety fence, however you want to call it, and then that's possibly a safety hazard to the residents that live nearby it. Aaron had mentioned that it's unlikely that that parcel will be built on, but I'm not sure how you guys can say that. I mean, if it's a residential parcel, how do you know what will be built on it 5 years from now, 10 years from now? But if you
Thank you
rezone it,
very-
you build a retention pond, how is anyone else going to be able to build on that?
All right. Thank you very much for your comments. And I believe with that, we will go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:49.
Can I?
Mr. Chairman, I think you have somebody else trying to speak.
Hi, this is Karen Egger. I own the property at 20707 Northland. Aaron, can you bring up the site plan for this project? And it'll show you that the entire building is actually on the residential property.
That is correct.
Too.
Right,
Yeah,
that-
the entire
the
building is on the residential property, and then only half of it becomes the detention pond towards Karen Todd's property at 20702.
Roy, I guess I'm going to ask you to reply, and Aaron, if you need to clarify, and I will readjust. I did close the public hearing at 7:49, but we'll retract that and keep the public hearing open for a few more minutes. So Roy, if you wanted
Yes.
to go ahead and comment, and if
Yes, sir.
Aaron needs to clarify.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the staff is the one that made those documents to show you exactly what was being what, and that has been explained multiple times in staff reports that, that is why you have design review on a portion of this, because a portion of it includes the building. But nonetheless, if you want to know what is an appropriate buffer between heavy commercial and residential, it is in fact a dedicated green space with or without a detention pond. And the point being, other than somebody taking a piece of property, this P2 designation does in fact preclude anything, a structure from being built on it. It does not include a pond, a lake, picnic benches, and a few things along those lines, but it does prevent commercial use of the property or even residential use of the property for that matter.
Thank you, Roy.
You bet.
Aaron, was there anything since the caller was referring to you by name? Did you want to clarify anything? You're muted.
Make sure I
No,
did.
Mr. Chairman, I think Roy addressed the question with regard, and when you look at the packet, it's clear where the buildings are located on the particular pieces of property. That's, I think that's pretty straightforward.
It's as straightforward as we know how to make it. We did those drawings for this exact purpose.
Yeah, but you guys keep saying that the building, nothing is on the residential lot, and it is. Half of the residential lot becomes the convenience store, and the other half becomes the detention pond. I mean, you guys keep saying that intrude upon that residential, that it's becoming a park and a detention pond, but it is not the lot.
Okay. The P2 portion is not having commercial, is what we've been saying.
That is correct.
No, you've been saying the entire lot is gonna be a parkland, and that.
No, sir, that's not true.
The originally.
There's a drawing. Okay,
Convenience
whatever.
store was gonna be on the original C2 lot, and that's not true. It's actually
No,
on
sir, that's-
half of the residential lot.
I'm going.
The entirety of the building is.
I'm going to ask that we have just one person speaking at a time, and if during this public hearing, if during this public hearing, you do make a comment and a question, and it appears to be directed to the commission, of course, the commission needs to get further clarification either from the city council or from the director of development. And I believe the director of development was trying to clarify your statement. So Roy, would you, at this point, whoever that particular caller was, would you just once again re-clarify about the comment on this project being built in the parkland?
Yes, sir. Those two early maps that you'll see with the red markings and the arrows and things,
yes,
as the commission members are probably familiar, those are typical indications that the staff did those drawings, and they're not in the packet along with the staff submittal. The staff did those drawings to make it real clear what is where. That's what they're for. And you'll see there's two sets of drawings, and the entirety of the building is in a portion of what was a residential lot. That is all that's in the portion that was a residential lot. The parking, the fuel canopy, all of that is in the footprint of what was the original C2 piece of property. And what we suggested, and which the arrows indicate, part of that R1 goes to C2 and part of that R1 goes to P2. And that is a drawing that's very clearly in the packet, and I drew it.
Well, this is Jeff Egger at 20707 Northland Drive that I was talking earlier. And you're right, you divided that lot, that residential lot, and half of it is going to be the convenience store with lighting and traffic that comes up to it, and it across the street from residential, and you're putting this little sliver of that lot, or basically half of it, dedicated to a detention pond with concrete walls and steel railings and whatnot, and call it a park. I don't think that there's any need for a convenience store, number one, in the area when there's three of them within a half a mile.
That's not
and you're going to be taking away the value of all the properties down Northland by putting this dangerous convenience store that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is not an office building. It's not even like over at Phoenix Automotive, where they operate from 8 in the morning to 5 in the evening and not on Sundays. This is something that has traffic and noise and lighting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're trying to cram it down the throats of the residential people around there and call it a park. How you can even sleep at night? How would you like this next to your house?
All right. Was there anyone else that wanted to make a comment during the public hearing? Mr. Roberts, you've spoken several times. If you'd make it very brief, please.
Yes, sir. I will be extremely brief. On number 1 of section D, chapter 14, 13.20, where it reads, the commission finds significant, these are the key words. The commission must, I'm adding the word must, but the commission must find significant and unanticipated changes have occurred. Significant and unanticipated changes have occurred in the area of the affected parcel since the classification of the land use map was adopted. That means in order for you to find you have to determine that there have been significant and unanticipated changes in the area since the future land use map was adopted. So if you're going to vote in the affirmative, I would challenge you to tell the audience what are those significant changes that have occurred in that area since the future land use map was adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
You have the ability to go either way on this. The Texas Supreme Court, there's case law that clearly stipulates that you have the discretion to not do things like this. It's not obligatory for you to approve it. Thank you.
I think, Mr. Roberts, we know what the commission is charged with. And Ms. Silvera, I see that you, were you signaling you want to speak?
No, Mr. Chairman, if you have a question for me with regard to the law on this, I'd be happy to advise you as your counsel. I have due respect for Mr. Roberts, but he is not an attorney, nor is he your legal advisor this evening.
Thank you very much. We understand that clearly. And unless there's another comment from someone who has not spoken at this time, anyone who has not spoken during the public hearing?
I have a comment to make. My name's Karen Todd. I live at 20702 Northland, right adjacent to this property to be rezoned. I haven't heard anybody yet say they want this. And the gentleman who talked a couple of minutes ago, he lives right across the street from where the driveway is going to be. He adamantly does not want it for all the right reasons. So I'm not going to give any different reasons. I agree with everything that's been said so far. Nobody on this call wants this, and I don't really understand why we have a public hearing to get our opinion. We're giving you our opinion. It doesn't seem to matter. So how much sway do myself and other residents in the area actually have because you're asking us for our opinion?
All right, thank you for your comment.
Well, can you answer it?
Was there anyone else that wanted to make a comment during the public hearing?
Can you answer my question?
Oh, come on. I'm sorry, I'd like to say something. This is directed to the committee. Gary, would you please answer the question, my mom's question?
And the question was whether or not we did not hear what their comments were?
I didn't say that. What I said is, I'm not hearing anybody agree to this gas station convenience store atrocity that's going to be built. Nobody wants it that I know of, and no one on this call wants it. And I'm wondering, we have a public hearing. We're giving our public opinion. We feel very strongly about this. How much weight does our public opinion even carry?
I think your public, the public has every right to make their comments, and
how much weight does it carry with the final decision?
Well, first of all, let me help with this. There has not, at yet this point, been made a decision. And if by chance the commission were to recommend and move forward, it would be up to the city council, correct, Counselor? It would be up to the city council to determine if this is to move forward. So what we are charged with in planning and zoning is to interpret what's been applied for and whether or not it meets the criteria and whether or not we recommend or don't recommend to the city council to move forward. So,
what's the point of having a public forum then? You ask for our opinions and we give them to you, but if you decide to move forward, what's the whole point of this? Because nobody so far has said they want this. It's not like you can say 50% if you want it and 50% if you don't. Nobody wants it. So
this is not a vote.
Excuse me?
This is not a vote.
So what's the point of having an open forum then?
The owner of the lot that's on Loman Ford has the right to construct a building there that provides gasoline. What it appears that he's doing, he has purchased additional land to provide some type of of bumper between the neighborhood.
Well, I'm right next to him, and I read that it's not going to be any more than 25 feet, and the potential to build on that 25 feet is still open in the future. So what kind of a bumper do I have between myself and that retention pond? I'm downhill from that, and I'm not happy about it at all. I'm very downhill. When it rains, it pours through my property and down the road. So I know I'm going to get runoff from the gas station. So I'm not happy about that at all.
All right. Was there anyone else that wanted to make a comment during the public hearing?
Yes, this is Jeff Egger again at 20707 Northland Drive. And you were
Yes, sir.
saying that
Is
he
this
has the ability to build
excuse me just a second.
gas station.
Is this comment something that is new and different that hasn't already been brought forward to the commission?
It's addressing your comments that he already has the right to build a gas station on the original lot that is along Loman's Ford. Well, there is no way he can build a gas station there and have the proper detention pond to take care of the runoff from the fuels and other pollutants from that gas station without acquiring the residential lot for a minimum of the detention pond. You know, even if there was no convenience store, he still needs more property to have the proper engineered detention pond to take care of the fuels and the runoff from the gas pump. And you keep on acting as if he can do it without this other piece of property. He cannot. It is not an area that he can do this in. It should be done. There should be another type of business there, and not one that needs to be intrude upon the residential properties of the neighborhood.
All right. Thank you very much for your comment.
Yeah, and it's a good
I am-
comment, and you need to think about that the next time you say he can do it on the property that he has, because he cannot.
He has the right
Well,
to.
He has the right
We
to
certainly
only
appreciate
if
your
he
comment and your
only
opinion.
if he can manage to take to the.
What we'll do, if there's any other individual who has not had an opportunity to speak at this time, we would certainly acknowledge them. Anyone who has, all right, I think that might be it. So
Yes, I have
then
a
at 8:06
I have a question.
p.m., we will go ahead and close.
Question.
There's another question.
I'm
another
sorry,
question.
is it someone who has already spoken?
Yes, I have.
No, we're going to close the public hearing at 8:06.
I thought you said you would take as long as it takes. Somebody else wants to speak, so why can't she speak?
It's okay. I'm sorry. So is it standard procedure in a public hearing to limit the number of questions someone can ask?
In all the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings that I've been involved in, we ask during the public hearing, we ask for those individuals to try to take from 3 to possibly 5 minutes at the most. And if someone has already spoken and expressed the same opinion, we would just ask that the callers, the participants during the public hearing would just confirm that they agree with what someone else has said. And we have now from 7:17 to 8:07, almost an entire hour on the public hearing. This, once again, is the third time that this has come forward, and we have had 3 public hearings. We're continuing the public hearing from last month. So I think enough information has been given by the public for expressing their concerns.
Gary, can
So
I just say
we'll
that
go ahead and close the public hearing.
there was
And,
not a public hearing last month. The applicant and the attorney failed to show whether or not they emailed Roy or not. They failed to show, and now we're here again, the third meeting in a row. And yes, we are expressing our opinion, but we still haven't had the opportunity to hear the plans of the applicant or the applicant's attorney. All we hear is what was submitted to Roy and possibly to you guys in your packet, but none of us have seen any of that. As someone brought up earlier, we've never seen the traffic study. We're not seeing whatever was shared from your council screens to the rest of the committee.
And I appreciate your comment, but
Where can we get
it's being redundant to what has already been expressed.
No,
And
I
we
would
would like
But the
to go
question
ahead
is,
and-
Gary, when can we see that information? That's all she's asking. She's asking when we're going to be able to see the information, because then we'll have more to talk about.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, we
Sure.
published
Yeah,
that
yes, Roy.
information. We published that information on the city website. It stays on the city website at a minimum of a week before the first public hearing. We publish the packet each and every month and add supplemental material to it every month. But once again, the traffic study is not germane necessarily to the zoning ordinance, once we have the results of it. But there's nothing secretive about it. Anybody wants it, they can email it to me. I'll get it for them.
Roy, I'm sorry. I thought you said you did have the results of it.
I'm sorry?
I thought you said you did have the results of the traffic study.
I have the
Early-
results of it. I don't have the traffic study itself. The
Okay,
city
so-
engineer has that.
I see. So when would you have that available?
Let me repeat myself, okay? If you will send me an email requesting it, I will ask for it from the city engineer and forward it to you
Okay,
as
thank
a
you.
reply.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
All
Chairman?
right. All right. Now, at this point, we have closed the public hearing twice, and we are going to move forward with discussion amongst the members of the commission. I guess my first comment, having spent several trips over to that area, this person who I do believe and agree with Charles Solomon, that this individual has the right to build according to the way that property is zoned along Loman Ford and Northland, what would fit into that particular zone, what has been currently zoned, and he can put what he wants. And I believe if he wanted to put a service station, gas station, whatever you want to call that, he does have the right to build that. He would just probably have to modify what he would have to build. In my mind, I think trying to take this piece of property that can no longer be developed or built for any other reason and put any structure on it actually benefits the individuals that live along that residential street. And that happens to be just my opinion. So I will go ahead and continue discussion amongst the commission members and anybody that would like to comment. I don't, Tom, I see you're there and signal. So if you would, Tom.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Gary. And I think, if that residential lot is rezoned to P2 and for any business that goes there, there's going to be some kind of buffer needed, and that property is going to have to serve as the buffer. So if it could, I support the intended business for now, but as we know, sometimes after all these changes get made, they don't always get built. And but nonetheless, if the zoning change is made, then you have the buffer created for any other business that may want to come in behind them. So looking at strictly a zoning change, I guess I don't have any issues with it. I think the being the P2 designation is a benefit. I think the retention pond could be unsightly, but I think there's plans for vegetation to keep that even out of view as part of the tree plan or vegetation plan around it. So I guess, you know, and in terms of some other comments we heard about what's is significant or what, well, the significance is that I think we're growing by leaps and bounds, and the demand for additional businesses is there, and we have to be able to meet the demand for businesses, because that business will be for all travelers up and down Lowman Ford. So I think, you know, it's just a business that I support the change.
And I guess to add to that, Tom, it kept being brought up about changes in the area. I'm not sure what kind of a definition the area is, but if, in my mind, the area is Lago Vista, and
Yeah.
there's been significant changes in the last 90 days in Lago Vista, and
We had almost 400 houses
that just
in the last year. So
absolutely. If Larry, I see that you wanted to make a comment, and I'll get to you, Charlie. I see you. Yeah, Larry.
Okay, my first comment is I agree with Tom on a lot of that, but my second one is a question for Roy. Between the commercial area and actually basically against the R1, is there any rule that they have to put a privacy fence up between the two, besides just
It
putting
doesn't.
a fence?
It has to be a buffer. Your design review criteria that I put in there, the same thing that we're talking about adequately buffering the back of the building, that requirement would be there no matter what the size of the lot was.
Okay, but so there is no requirement. They put a
right. It could be handled any number of ways. It could be landscaping, a fence, a wall, an earth berm, all kinds of things. But there is a buffer required that's not a piece of property, but a physical improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Can I?
So I got a question for Roy, I guess, before we make a motion.
Yep.
Roy, if you know, if we vote to approve this thing based on the contingencies that they complete the design criteria that you spelled out, would you be waiting for that to come in before you put it on council's agenda to approve, or how would you handle that?
No, sir. We would handle that during two other review processes. One is there's a site development plan review that needs to be completed. We would demand those documents there before we approved it and enforce any conditions. And we would also enforce some of those during the permitting requirement for issuing of the building permits. But
okay.
in a lot of ways, you know, some of these are could be enforced without you stipulating it. But, you know, and you guys may realize this by now, sometimes I engage in overkill. I want to make it real clear to the applicants what they have to do, and keep the staff out of arguments during the permitting stage.
Okay.
Charlie, I saw you had wanted to speak
No,
there.
I have one comment about the plan that I see. There seems to be an exit onto the side street. And I think that is a problem for the neighborhood. Is there any way to restrict it so that all exits and entrances are off of Loman Ford?
No, sir, that was addressed in the traffic study. It did require that improvement and that exiting to keep it safe.
So there has to be an exit onto Northland.
Yes, sir.
The left turn, Mr. Chairman, if I may, if you want to look, if you look at the packet, page 21 of 132, you'll see that site plan, and you'll notice that the traffic coming, I guess, southbound on Loman, that would, as it would enter the property, it's a right in and a right out only. So those who would use this particular business, if they needed to turn left onto Loman, they would have to use the Northland, the additional turn lane that is required through the traffic study for this particular project will require the addition of a turn lane, so that there is an additional turn lane so that they can turn left.
Correct. And there's widenings and there's emergency vehicle access issues. And to echo what I believe it was the chair that was saying before, it's the size of the store that dictates this application. They would have to do a much smaller store, and these kind of issues were difficult to address on a smaller piece of property.
Don?
Just out of curiosity, would it not be, in order to eliminate that exit onto Northland, which apparently is not probable, would it not be possible to put a center lane in Loman Ford down that area where you could turn left or turn right?
I think it's the lack of frontage, if I'm not mistaken, sir.
Okay.
If they had a lot more frontage, they might be able to avoid that secondary access. But that's what it would take. I think they would need a much wider lot at this particular location.
That's what concerned me when I saw, as Aaron mentioned, right in and right out only. And
yeah, well, and they widened that street quite a bit to accommodate, actually.
Yeah, so you have to be able to handle it.
Yep, they did both. They're improving that street quite a bit at their expense.
Thank you.
Another Brigham Street? I'm not.
Which street?
Exactly. Who has been
Northland, yes, sir.
If
If you'll look carefully at the site plan, Mr. Monahan, you'll see the street gets wider the closer it gets to the intersection.
Okay.
Any other members of the commission with discussion or comments? No? All right then. To make a recommendation, I'll just go ahead and make the motion that item number 20-1726-R-RZ/20179, that the Planning and Zoning Commission of Lago Vista recommends to the City Council approval of this zoning change, and also to stipulate, as written in the documents, that items 1, 2, and 3, which address depth and design of detention of water, and clarification of precise nature of exterior finish, and also acknowledgement that Loman Ford right-of-way dedication is equal to the free required acceleration deceleration lanes. Is there a second to that motion? I guess I would ask Ms. Silvera if that was adequate as a motion. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone care to second?
Aye.
Thank you. It's been seconded by Tom Monahan. I guess I would ask at this point, any further discussion before we go for a vote? I don't see anybody acknowledging that. So, Tom, your vote is?
Aye.
And Richard is not present. Ms. Davis?
Nay.
I'm sorry.
Nay.
You said no?
No.
Yes.
Okay. Charles Solomon?
Opposed, no.
And Don Jandro?
No.
Larry Hagler?
No.
And so with that, the motion does not carry. And that's with one individual not present and 4 nay, no votes, and 2 yes.
And we will forward
So
this to the city council, sir. And your recommendation has consequences. It would take a super majority to now approve it.
Understand. So item number 2. Item number 2 on the agenda is 211761-R-REZ, consideration of a recommendation regarding a zoning district change from C1C professional business office low density retail to C2 commercial large scale with design approval of this property located at 8001 Bronco Lane, Bar K Ranches, section 18, lot 18008. And Roy, if we could have your presentation, please.
Yes, sir. Let me start out with a point that I do have a copy of this traffic study because they sent it to me directly. I didn't review it. Eric did, but I do have it in this case if somebody wants to see it. This is the property directly across the street from both the Sonic and the fire station that is nearing completion. It is in the nearby vicinity of a number of C2 uses, including the Sonic, even though it's in a C1 zoning district in most jurisdictions. A drive-through restaurant or a car hop restaurant would in fact be a C2 use. The proposed use of this property is for a microbrewery. It does require design review approval, and you do have the documents in front of you. The primary issue were to protect, as in all these cases, the fact that the property adjacent to it is residential. And we worked very carefully with the architect to make sure that they included absolutely everything that was reasonably possible to protect that. One of the things that's working in favor of this application is that residential property is much higher than this particular lot. So buffering is fairly easily accomplished. The wall, for example, even though it's only 6 feet tall, you've got a huge change in elevation that works in your favor so that you won't see much of this building.
So Roy, I mean, really the only reason we're asking for C2 is for the usage part of it, not because of anything else related to zoning changes.
That is correct. Right.
Yeah.
It's, and as you guys know, when I encounter a use, even if it's arguably allowed in C1, nobody wants to end up with a non-conforming use. If a normal jurisdictional zoning district would call that a C2 use, I encourage the applicants to go ahead and make that change rather than find themselves in an awkward position 10 years down the line if they want to add on to their building or do something where it then becomes problematic. This seemed appropriate. It's surrounded by C2 uses. But this use would require a C2 based zoning district. This is not an optional.
Any other commissioners have a question of Roy at this point?
No, so. I was looking at the height, and I know 28 feet's the allowed, and they got 31 feet from the ground floor, but because of the elevation change, that's well below anything those back lots, interfering with those back lots, it looks
Yes, sir. For the most part, you're going to be looking at the roof and not much else.
like.
I see Jerry's in the audience. He may have looked at those more carefully than I do, but that was my general impression.
Yes, sir, that's what you and I had talked about. So
I'm sorry.
that the grade change would be enough to where it wouldn't be a problem. This is Jerry.
Who's Jerry?
Jerry's
I'm
the
the
architect. I'm sorry.
Oh.
He and I armed wrestled a few times,
sorry.
but it worked out okay.
Is this the applicant presentation then?
Well, I just asked him to chime in about make sure my comment was accurate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But yeah.
All right. It's just hard to keep track. Is there any other commission members that had questions of Roy and his presentation? If not, then we'll ask for the applicant to make their presentation.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I am the builder of the brewery, and I think it'd be a great ad for the city of Lago Vista. It's going to be a 5,000 square foot brewery. It's in a future use of mixed use. It fits well with the buildings that are already in the area, and I think that it's going to be a great add to the community. We've made sure to ensure on the design end that it does fit in with the other buildings, and that we do keep in mind that the residential lots behind are well preserved and the sound barriers are there and the walls built on the back end of the property to ensure that there's not too much interference. And so we've really done a good job in trying to mitigate that. And I think that everyone's going to enjoy this brew. So that's what we have as far as our presentation goes. And if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. I guess just to be clear, and maybe I'm misinformed and maybe the laws changed over the years, this particular brewery, it is outside the area of a school or a church. Is any of that still a problem these days when a place that serves alcohol?
We did the research when Aaron first joined us full time, I think. It came up in regard to the convenience store at Boggy Ford at Loman. We did the research. We just defer to what the state requires. We have no special protection for schools, churches, any of those kind of things. The city has the right to adopt such ordinance, but they have not done so.
Very good. Thanks much for that, Roy. Just wanted to be sure. Nice place like this to be built, and all of a sudden the brewery can't sell beer would be kind of catastrophic, I would think. Anyone have, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious, is this planned for just a tap room, or is there going to be like takeout growlers or something like that? Do you know, or are they going to be serving pub grub or anything like that? I mean, as far as what all this business is going to offer, if you would know.
Actually, Mark Norman, the brewer, the future brewer, is on the call, and I would ask that he would speak to that.
Okay. And so I noticed in the application, the owner is from Malaysia. Is he planning to come here to run the business, or does he have an agent to run the business for him, or what?
Actually, so we currently have the land under contract. The person in Malaysia is the seller. We're the buyer. Mark Norman is the buyer, and he's going to be operating the brewery. He's on this call. And it's under contract right now, and we're in our feasibility period to make sure that, you know, we can rezone it and that he can move forward with the brewery before he purchases it. He does have it under contract.
Okay, thank you.
So it's under contract with the proviso that it's under contract with the proviso that the brewery would move forward if the zoning change could be made, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Mr. Norman.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to answer his question. As far as the legality of a brew pub can sell beer to go and also do self-distribution.
Yes, to growlers.
Yes.
Any other commission members have questions of the applicant?
Will there be food?
As of this time, there's no plan for that, but that's not to mean that there won't be in the future.
That's not our expertise.
Other questions for the applicant from the commission members? All right, if that's the case, then we will go ahead and open the public hearing at 8:36. All right, members of the public that would like to ask questions, make comments at this point? Yes, Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for recognizing me. I appreciate it. I would just like to say that I think that this is a fantastic idea for Lago Vista to have a microbrewery here and in that location. Further, across the street on the other side of 1431, there's currently a contract in place to build a hotel in Lago Vista. And this would be a perfect accompaniment to that and growth along this corridor. You may have seen recently that Leander, for example, in their annual work, where they're going back and working on their comprehensive plan, they're doing and looking at and zoning areas within their municipality along 1431, similar to what you see here. I would encourage the commission to approve the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe we should think about either a tunnel or possibly a skywalk so that you could take your growler back and forth from the brew pub to your hotel room.
Well, personally, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have a zip line where I can only hold with one hand and hold my IPA with the other. Thank you.
We'll certainly make sure that gets passed along to the proposed owners of both the brew pub and the hotel. However, I think we should probably restrict the zip line to maybe a certain age group. Yeah. Maybe children of a certain height would not be permitted, or right. or people in advanced age, like some we know, would not be participating with your zip line. Maybe you could have the concession on the zip line for all we know.
And they could take Lago Bucks.
Oh, what a great idea. I wish
agree.
Mr. Brown was here to be able to comment. I'm
I'm
sure
sure
he
he
would.
could add much, sir.
Oh, I bet he would.
I know.
I'll
Thank
make
you.
sure he gets this transcript.
I'll buy him an IP when it opens.
Is there other individuals that wanted to make comments during this public hearing? Doesn't appear so. So we'll close the public hearing at 8:38 and open it up for discussion amongst the commission members. Any commission members have comments? Let's start with Don.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question about the elevations. I was a little bit distracted looking at the elevations. I was trying to figure out if the entrance elevation were at the back or at the front, but I think I see now, because the tank or the silo that's there beside it is rainwater collection, right?
Well, two of them are. There's a third one. The optional one may or may not be.
That's what I'm thinking. The optional one was the advertising one.
Right.
Okay.
And
I understand.
Yeah, you enter through the beer garden. That's
Got it.
where the entry is, to answer your question.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, the comment is, I think it's a great idea. So, I'm all for it.
I just wanted to make a comment to the objections from the that are in the packet. I checked out the property values of those lots that they said would be negatively affected. And I think the majority of them were purchased 15, 20 years ago and around the range of $1,000 to $2,000. So I think that we're being considerate of those property owners. I don't think this would negatively affect it since everything else around it is commercial. Just my observation.
Thank you. Any other commission members? All right. Then would someone like to make a recommendation?
I will.
Go ahead, Tom.
For agenda item 21-1761-R-REZ at 8001 Bronco Lane, I make a motion that Planning and Zoning recommend to City Council to make the zoning change from C1C to C2 based, and add to that in the technical summary and under potential alternative recommendations that it include item B 1 and 2, which has to do, which one deals with the outdoor sound level, and item 2 has to do with any food truck service.
A second.
That was seconded by who, please?
My Don.
Oh, thank you, Don. Thank you, Don. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this item? I would ask that we call the roll, and Tom, your vote is?
Aye.
And Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Solomon?
Aye.
And Mr. Jandro?
Aye.
Mr. Hagler?
Aye.
And the chair votes with a growler. Excuse me. Yes? So the motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 3. Good luck, Normans.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. We're excited.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Casey Building Company.
Are you ready for
All
me,
right,
Mr.
item
Chair?
number 3. I'm sorry?
I was just wondering if you were waiting for me to speak. I didn't know if you were ready for me or not.
Almost.
There you okay.
Almost. I had to take a little sip out of my growler. Excuse me. That's just a little levity. We can use a little levity this evening. Item number 3, 21-1756-SP-E, consideration of a special exception application pursuant to section 11.60 of chapter 14 to allow an increase in the maximum height allowed by table A of chapter 14 from 15 feet to 16 feet 11 inches for a single family residence at 21802 Surrey Lane, Barkay Ranches, Plat 8, Lot 8047. And just a reminder to the commission members that in order to vote, you have in fact perused the property and marched around, and hope you didn't have to do that in the ice and snow today. But anyway, so with that, Roy, if you would do the staff presentation.
Yes, sir. This one was a bit challenging. I kept looking for some kind of potential negative impact to talk about in the staff report. I was hard pressed to find one. If there's a view of anything other than trees, I'm not aware of it. More or less, the increase in the height is rather minimal. I don't think there's any modifications to the building that are available that would have avoided it. In fact, I'm a little nervous about the kind of roof he's putting on it, but that's just me, in case anybody wondering. I don't like to put a composition shingle roof on anything less than 4 and 12, and this one's 3 and 12. So,
All right. Any questions of the staff from commission members? All right. Okay. If not, we'll move along and ask for the applicant presentation.
Hi, this is Karen, the owner of 21802 Surrey Lane. On this house, we couldn't find a house plan that would be any lower. This is a table flat lot. And unfortunately, the one house plan that would sit on there that has a lower roof line is only 2 lots away. So we can't repeat the same house plan. And Roy, on the 3 and 12, if you use an asphalt shingle, if you use the water and ice shield, it is much better. I know there are quite a few people.
I'm old school. I'm old school.
Okay.
I don't trust those kind of techniques.
We're the only builder in Lagos, I think, using that. But the water and ice shield is actually what you need to use on a 12. But unfortunately, we have to go to such low pitch roof because of the height restriction.
Well, and that was my point. You went as far as you can go. In fact, a little further than I might have.
Right. But that's about it. I mean, we only have one plan that would fit within that 15-foot height restriction, and it is only 2 lots away. So we can't repeat that lot or that plan on that lot. And that's all I have to say.
If I could ask the applicant, I didn't know if I caught that, and just for the record, your full name and you represent who?
I'm Karen Egger, and I represent Casa Rio Builders.
Thank you, Karen. All right, any questions of the applicant from members of the commission? All right, then we will go ahead and open the public hearing at 8:48. And any members of the public out there would like to make a comment about this? Mr. Roberts, I saw your camera come on, and I didn't
No,
know
sir,
if that
nothing.
was.
Nothing to say, nothing for me, sir. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
I mean, I could come up with something if you'd like.
I'm sure you could, but
I'll pass.
if nothing else, you've given me an opportunity since we opened the public hearing at 8:48, and no one else really there to make a comment. You've given me enough time to be able to close the public hearing at 8:49. Any further discussion on the part of the commission members? All right. Then in regards to item number 3, I'll make a motion that item number 211756-SP-E, the Planning and Zoning Commission of Lago Vista would grant a special exception to the application to increase the property height at 21802 Surrey Lane, Barkay Ranches, Plat 6, Lot 804, from 15 feet to 16 feet, 11 inches.
Second.
It's been seconded by Larry Hagler. Any further discussion? All right, then. Tom Monahan
Aye.
and Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Solomon,
Aye.
Mr. Jandro,
Aye.
Mr. Hagler,
Aye.
and Gary Zaleski votes yes. It's carries unanimous to approve. All right, thank you very much, all. At this point, I would like to, we're blessed to have both David Williams, our liaison, and I see that Arch Davila is also available. I wonder if you could grace us with a few words of wisdom, David.
Yes, I just want to let you know that we've formed a subcommittee group that's been working on the comprehensive plan, updating the accomplishments in 2020. There's seven different members, or well, 8 of us, I guess there is, and we're trying to have it done by March so that you see it at your March meeting, and you can then add whatever you all need to add. But the committee is made up of Mr. Roger Chan, Roy Jamber, Eric Belay. Those are the staff members. Then we have Tom Monahan. We have Jim Kaysen. We have Arch Davila, Paul Prince, and myself, all putting this together. And we broke it up into different sections, and we're having a meeting on Wednesday to try to see where we are. And we're trying to have it completed for you all in March for you to review. I thought that would be the quickest way for you all to be able to look at it, and we could get it to City Council at the following meeting after your meeting, and get it done and move on and move into 2021. So I appreciate all you do. With all the public hearings that you had, I figured you didn't have time to really sit down and delve into the comprehensive plan. So I wanted to make it shorter for you all to be able to review it and not have to spend as much time on it. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you very much, David. Any comments or questions for David from any of the commissioners?
Are you playing
Thanks
golf
again, David.
tomorrow?
No, no, no.
Okay.
I'm dodging cedar trees that are falling all around me.
You ought to see the oaks that came down at my place.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Yep, it's pretty
Hope
rough out there.
everyone remains safe and stay out of harm's way. Try to stay off the road.
And off the roof.
All right.
All
Thanks.
right. Thank you, David. Moving along to the consent agenda. That all matters of listed in the consent agenda are considered routine by the commission and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. And to what we need to consider, first is the minutes of October the 8th of 2020 regular meeting. I hope that all of you have pored over those minutes and can appreciate what Alice has gone through to try to accomplish this. And so I would certainly like to thank her for her hard work. And if you'd pass that along, Roy and Aaron. So the minutes of October 8th, 2020, a motion to approve.
Do we do them one at a time or both together?
Do we have to do them all together, Aaron?
Yes, sir, all
Okay.
together. It's a consent agenda as a whole.
All right. And the minutes of November 12th, 2020, the regular meeting, they were quite lengthy. So a motion to approve.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes for October and November 2020.
And I'll go ahead and Larry goes and seconds that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor, aye. The minutes are approved. All right. Anybody like to discuss any future agenda items or make recommendations at this point?
I'd like to mention one, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
You certainly may, Roy.
It's I don't know if it's so much the business of this commission as much as it is something that will perhaps benefit you in the future. I've been working with several of our new and relatively new members of the staff to try and address some improvements in the permitting process, one of which will include measures that will allow us to get very early verification and reinforcement and documentation of the heights of buildings before they get, very far at all. And I will bring those to you. There are two reasons why you don't have it this month. One is I've got about 3 or 4 sentences to fix, and I haven't done that yet. And the other one is for protocol, I'd like the Building and Standards Commission to see it first, since it's really in their province, if you will. It would seem weird if I showed it to y'all first before I showed it to them, but it includes a lot of things for them. But for you guys, it will include that. We will require registered professional land surveys up front to do something. The form surveys will include a top of form elevation, and before they're allowed to do anything but erect, studs, they're gonna have to get a surveyor back out there to verify the framing height. We're not even gonna let them put insulation or sheathing on it till that's done. So those are a lot of those are procedural changes that'll be on that sheet, but some of them are ordinance changes, so they won't happen overnight, but we're working on them.
Tom?
just for future agenda, I'd still like to talk about what rule changes we can do for as a result of the, what was it, not Bronco Lane, Buffalo Trail we had last month.
Right.
But I mean, there's a couple zoning amendment changes. I mean, one, I'd like to discuss, I at least drafted a sentence or something that would close the door on using height exceptions retroactively as a way to comply with the height requirement, so that's no longer an option available. And then two, there's been a lot of discussion, I know, from Board of Adjustments, and I think we've touched on a little bit in the past about our fence height requirements and whether we want to amend the fencing requirement to increase the height to 8 feet in of the current 6 feet. If that's something we can address or discuss.
And Mr. Chair, I might go further than that. The more you look at the fence ordinance, the more you realize it's a mess. It needs a lot of work, and it may be something a little more intense than that is warranted.
I would agree with that too. I mean, currently I was looking at it today, and I don't have a fence in my backyard. I'm on the golf course, and I could get an electric fence put in without a permit.
Well, it says about 3 or 4 different conflicting things, from sentence to sentence. So, and that's a problem.
Yep.
So
I
I could put
bring that up because it seems to be a common issue that's coming up more and more with Board of Adjustments, and if I've been asked by a couple of those members about getting that changed to 8 feet, and I'm not sure why it's not there now, but
well,
6 feet, but.
Quite frankly, I don't know if you remember and who all was on the Landscaping and Tree Preservation Committee. The original intent was to tackle the fence right after that, but then COVID hit.
Right.
So Tom, you're saying I could put an electric fence to keep those golfers out of my yard that are retrieving.
No, you'd have to say it was deer.
Oh, I mean, I had one up on the deck, trying to get the ball that was wedged in some very, very nice succulent plants that we have on the deck. And
hire a dog.
it wasn't David. It wasn't you. It wasn't you. But anybody that puts a ball in my yard or up on my deck is from the number 2 tee box is pretty bad.
Yes, that would be. But if you put an electric fence up, we might just turn and start hitting balls into your yard.
Well, that's
just
true.
To be hit.
That's true.
Yeah. So you go ahead and put up an electric fence.
I trained the dog to pick them up very quickly and carry them up into the house. So
I hear you.
Need a more aggressive dog.
But we digress. Roy, just to help clarify one of the things that you mentioned. So in terms of height and, the height survey, if just some of the discussions that we've had from the highest point of the lot, before they start actually excavating, is there a way to find out what is the high point of that lot before they start excavating and building the house?
Right. And in theory, they give us that now, but there's no certification required. So, I mean, a builder can just make it up and it may or may not be accurate. We're going to put some teeth in it now is basically what we're talking about doing. The way the ordinance reads now, you cross your fingers and hope you're dealing with reputable people that really have the intention to comply with the ordinance, and that just hasn't worked out to be true. So we're gonna raise the cost of a house a few $100s in each case, and as I explain it to them, we're going to have to punish the innocent with the guilty. But that's just that's the only way to really prevent what's going on now.
And so that would be with every residence that's, or really any building that's going
Yes,
to
sir.
be constructed, they would have to get
Yes,
that height survey before.
Yeah, at very critical stages. We're going to add certifications and inspections into the process, as well as certain documents that have to be provided in order to get a permit in the first place. A lot of the stuff that we've been taking on faith, we're going to stop doing that. And the ordinance was written that way before. It was, you know, it was written under the assumption that there aren't any bad guys out there.
Well, I know there isn't any on this esteemed commission. So, any other future agenda item discussions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Silvera.
we had I wanted to say thank you for y'all's participation in the Board of Adjustment P&Z joint meeting / training we had recently. On the heels of that, is there any inclination from the Planning and Zoning Commission to take up any consideration of revisions to the variance requirements? You are the legislative body that would consider that, and partially it would be your job to do the recommendation to council of those requirements. I think there's some serious desire, or at least some concern by the Board of Adjustment, but they don't have the authority to do that part. That's within your purview.
I thought that you guys, the chairs and our councilmen, were going to get together and have that further discussion to bring back to us.
Yes, I think there is an intention to have that. I just didn't want to let, if we're going to have a running list of items for a future meeting, my hope is that we can have this joint discussion here in the short term. And so, for next month, if you wanted to do it, if you wanted to push it out sometime, that's really up to you. I just don't want to let it fall off our plate.
You could push that out for the next meeting if that's appropriate.
I'll work on scheduling the joint discussion first, so that you guys can at least have that part.
Very good. All right. Any other future agenda items? If not, it's 9:05 and we are adjourned. Good night,
Thank you,
all.
gentlemen and
Stay
ladies.
warm.
Drive the ice.
Watch the ice.
Stay off the roads.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Roy, don't forget to turn